The Ravens Preview Show with Andy Pollin starts right now.
It wasn't perfect, it wasn't pretty, but it was the Ravens.
Listen to all Ravens broadcasts right here on 6:30 a.m., the ESPN 630 app, or ESPN630DC.com.
And with 1:17 left to play, the hay's in the barn.
Now, here's Andy Pollin.
Well, like the commercial says, you might want to grab a Snickers because there's not going to be a game for the Ravens until a week from Sunday when they have a 1 o'clock kickoff at home against the L.A. Rams. The L.A. Rams, who have picked things up a lot recently. They are playing much better football and will look like a much bigger test than they did several weeks ago. The Rams now 5-6 on the season and getting themselves into the playoff hunt in the NFC, and they will be at M&T Bank Stadium a week from Sunday as the Ravens get the week off after what they say is their best defensive performance of the year. Now, they did allow 10 points to the Chargers in the Sunday night game, but they came away very impressed with how they played. And they're sitting in a very good position at 9-3 on the year. Cleveland is 7-4, and they may have to start Joe Flacco this week when they play the Rams. So they'll get a preview of the Rams, and they'll get a preview of the team that's just behind them in the standings. Ahead of them on defense in terms of statistics, the Browns are still the number one defensive team in the league. The Ravens are number 2. They give up 274 yards a game. They have only given up 16 touchdowns on the year. And as a comparison, the Commanders have given up 39 touchdowns this year. So they're keeping teams out of the end zone. They have 47 sacks. That's number 1. And that is 6 ahead of the second-place team. The Buffalo Bills have 41 on the year. So the Ravens defense is getting it done, and they are looking like a team that could be in the Super Bowl from the AFC. Now, you narrow it down to who looks good. Kansas City obviously looks good. Cleveland defensively looks good, but they may not have the offense. And you got Jacksonville as a comer at 8-3, and that's about it. I mean, that's probably the contenders that they have, are those teams in the AFC. Otherwise, maybe Miami is going to challenge them. I don't know if Buffalo is going to get back in it at 6-6, and is Aaron Rodgers going to come to the rescue for the Jets? Who knows? But it looks like the Ravens are in a very good spot. Offensively, they're starting to score, but they have a defense that, again, you play complementary football, you play to your defense. So here's what's left. They've got the Rams a week from Sunday at home. They are at Jacksonville. They are at San Francisco. And then they get the 2 games to finish up at home. And you talk about warm weather teams that are coming into a cold weather city. So you got Miami coming here in late December to play the Ravens. Will they be affected by that? Who knows? And then the big finale against Pittsburgh. And I don't know how much of a factor Pittsburgh is going to be. They have been finding ways to win, but they just don't score points. They're 7-4 on the year. So you got to like the setup of how the Ravens have been put together and how they're playing right now, particularly defensively, and how they're set up for the stretch with the bye week now coming up as they are off on Sunday. Ken McKusick hosts the Film Study podcast, and he joins us now. And I've just been rambling about how they shape up against the other teams in the AFC. Got to think, Ken, they're sitting in a very good spot right now, don't you think? We have Ken. We have some technical issues. Let's see if we can get Ken on the line. We're trying to get Ken McKusick. Do we have it set up? Let's try it one more time. Yes? No? Rex is going to try again while I ramble. Okay. So, yeah. So that's how they set up as they go into this with and really, if you look at the losses that the Ravens have had, these have all been winnable games. I mean, to be 9-3 at this point, I don't think it's out of the question to say they might be an 11-1 team. And as far as the bye week goes, remember they had the option when they played that game in London of taking it afterwards, but they didn't take it. And now to have it this late in the season is a real plus. And I think, for teams that are in contention, to have a bye week in December is probably a pretty good thing. So that's where they are. Let me get to this, and we'll vamp a little bit while we wait for Ken. This is Roquan Smith, who was on with the NBC crew after the win last Sunday night in Los Angeles against the Chargers, and very pumped up at the way this defense is playing right now.
Man, we just stuck together throughout. Credit to the offense as well and defense, man. You know, the pressure is on, so pressure either burst pipes or make diamonds, and we in the diamond making business.
You know, Coach and I, we really get excited watching you and Patrick Queen play. When you watch him play, and I know you've probably impacted his career, talked to him, spoke to him, what are some of the things that you see in him that kind of remind you of yourself?
Honestly, man, just the way he just, like, relentless. Like, this year, man, I've been seeing this guy just so physical, relentless, hitting everything that moves. And when I see that from the linebacker position, I love it.
Yeah.
Talking to your defensive staff before the game, they said, hey, Roquan has brought a lot to us on the practice field, in the meeting rooms. What did you want to do when you came here? Obviously, you left a great situation. Now you know you wanted to be in Chicago, but now you're coming to a great defense. What did you want to bring to the table?
Honestly, I just wanted to be myself at the end of the day, and that's who I am best. And I felt like, you know, the guys respect who I am as a person and just the way I go about things day in and day out. And I just don't take anything for granted. And I think the guys really, truly love that and respect that. A player that, like, never take no for an answer and always willing to hit anything that moves.
You know, it's interesting what happened at the trade deadline last year. Roquan Smith was in Chicago. He wanted to stay in Chicago. They didn't want to meet his price. So they traded him to the Ravens, and instantly, this doesn't usually happen, especially with a team that's based so much of his reputation on defense, has established defensive players, that Roquan Smith walked in the door and instantly became a leader, not even being with the team through the first half of the season. And really, you know, being there with a team that, unfortunately, they didn't have Lamar Jackson at the end of the year, and we're missing quite a bit on offense, and, you know, might have been able to make a deep run into the playoffs if that had not happened. But to come in the door in midseason and take over as a leader is really a credit to him, and he's picked up right where he left off. And you can tell just by the way he expresses himself, by the enthusiasm that he has, that he is the modern day Ray Lewis, as much as, you know, Ray Lewis, much as you can be like a Hall of Fame football player. And I don't know if Roquan Smith will ever get there, but the personality that he brings to the defense is good. Speaking of the defense, and we'll see. I'll tell you what, Rex. Let's see if we can get him after the break. Let's roll through these quotes here. This is Tim Hasselbeck on ESPN this past week, looking at what the Ravens were able to do in Los Angeles against the Chargers and what he thinks they are right now.
I do think it's probably still the strength of their football team, John, to be honest with you. And there have been moments where this offense has, with a new offensive coordinator, been trying to find its way. There's no Mark Andrews right now in this offense. I think the strength of the Ravens football team right now is on the defensive side of the ball. So they're aggressive. They do a great job of causing turnovers. Think about it at the beginning of this football game. We're showing them they caused 2 fumbles because they're punching the football out. So, look, they're not, probably on par with some of the great Ravens defenses in the past, but I do think it's the best part of their team right now.
Well, yeah, it's a high bar because the 2000 Ravens may be the best defense of all time. I think it's the 85 Bears, but you could make a case that the 2000 Ravens were that good. Ray Lewis used to walk up and down the sideline saying, just give me 7, just give me 7. That's all I need. And they didn't have much offense at all. They did not. But the defense was tremendous that year when they clobbered the Giants in the Super Bowl. A couple of things from John Harbaugh on this bye week, and this is, again, looking back on what they did against the Chargers. Asked if it's the best defensive effort of the year, he said.
Yeah, you could say that probably. I mean, we've had some pretty good ones, but that's a heck of an offense. They challenge you in a lot of different ways, and you take away the one quarterback scramble probably, and they didn't have much, So, and then the one long drive they had also and then Jadeveon Clowney coming up with that play. I'm gonna tell you what, I failed to mention that last night. Just didn't hit my mind. That might have been the play of the game. I mean, that rush, that sack, that recovery, the whole thing was just, just a Hall of Fame type play. So even when they did get the two longer drives, I think our guys stepped up pretty big. They did score on the one, unfortunately, but yeah, I think you're making a good point.
Yeah, they could be their best effort, and they're going to need it against some teams that are going to be in the mix, especially Jacksonville when they play at Jacksonville 2 weeks from Sunday. Last thing from Harbaugh, going into the bye week, expectations of what they'll get done?
We're going to make the most of it. We've got an opportunity now to kind of get to work as a coaching staff this week, look at ourselves, look at our opponents, try to drum up some ideas, going down the stretch for situational football. There's plenty of areas, all three phases that, we need to improve, we need to get better. There's a lot of things we can get better at. I could go through the list right now, but I probably don't want to, but we've gone through the list already today. And we're going to try to find ways to improve as a coaching staff to help our guys and give them some more tools going down the stretch.
It's John Harbaugh. No game this week as they get ready to play the Rams a week from Sunday. This is Ravens Preview. Hopefully we hook up with Ken McKusick. We shall see. Stay with us. You're listening to ESPN 630.
Ravens on 3, 1, 2, 3.
This is the Ravens Preview Show presented by Verizon. Here's Andy Pollin.
Okay, it's a good thing we're on a bye week because we're not executing as well as we possibly good today. We're finally joined, hopefully here, by Ken McKusick, who does the Film Study podcast. You with us?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. We got the technical problems worked out. Bye week coming up, so the preview is actually for a week from Sunday, and we'll get to the Rams. But I was just going through the contenders in the AFC, and of the 4 division leaders, they're going to see 2 of them in the upcoming weeks. They're going to see both Jacksonville and Miami. And, as far as getting a read on what it's going to take to get to the Super Bowl, it may have to go through Kansas City again. But the way the Ravens are playing right now, especially defensively, I think you got to like their chances as much as anybody who's leading a division in the AFC, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think you pointed out the litmus test they'll go through over the next 5 weeks is really something. The Rams still in contention in the NFC. They're going to have to beat Miami and Jacksonville to have a hope of the number 1 seed in all likelihood. If they can win 4 out of 5, Kansas City loses 2 games. The number 1 seed is still a possibility. The number 2 seed is also a tremendous value because you play 2 games at home with that, and that would be second prize, the consolation prize, which would be just terrific as well.
Yeah, they played a game without Mark Andrews, and obviously they passed the first test without him. Zach Ertz is now on the market. What do you think the chances are they might land him?
I'm a hard no on Zach Ertz. He's had 5.7 yards per target on his last 296 targets over the last 4 years. There's no way I would consider that. The Ravens have better in-house, and I think they may have better on their practice squad. So we'll see where Ertz ends up, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's a one-day contract with Philadelphia to end his career.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's why he asked for his release. And as far as the slack of him being out, what's your sense of, I don't know how much you can tell from what they saw in one game against the Chargers, but your sense of the stretch run without him?
They haven't figured out who's the replacement for Mark Andrews yet. Isaiah Likely had a good game, but he had 40 yards and 44 yards after the catch. Mm-hmm. So his average catch obviously behind the line of scrimmage, and that's not getting out into the Mark Andrews area. Beckham, they've used more effectively on slants the last couple of weeks, giving him a chance to run with some misdirection and getting him a one-on-one opportunity. Beckham's legs look pretty good right now, much better than I would have expected, and he could be a guy who helps. I think other than that, Bateman is the great route runner, but you don't have they really haven't had an opportunity to run routes with how bad the offensive tackle play has been. So the pocket is collapsing very quickly. They got pressured on 41% of plays this last week, which is far too many, and need to give Lamar some more opportunity to throw, which means they have to find a way to manufacture time and space for him as the primary thing they need to fix about the offense before they start worrying about how they don't have someone to replace Mark Andrews.
We're talking to Ken McKusick of the Film Study podcast, Ravens on their bye week as we do Ravens preview here. Your sense of the offense and the adjustment that has gone on this year and where they are now versus where they were at the beginning of the season. They did have some trouble scoring points. The games that they've lost, especially like the Colts, not enough offense. Do you think that they have come a long way, or do you think there's still a long way to go with this offense?
I think the offense is probably good enough as it is right now. We'll see if the Andrews question is a really legitimate one, and the offensive tackle question. I think once they get those resolved, they're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Really hard to solve an offensive tackle problem, by the way, on the fly. But Ronnie Stanley has just had a year that's way below where they had hoped he would be back to, and it's probably going to force their hand in terms of whether they use their draft capital in 2024. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to have to draft at least one tackle in a high round, probably in the first round. We'll see how that plays out. But defensively is what's held this team together. They've led every game going into the fourth quarter. They did blow 3 leads at that point. but they've gotten the lead, and a lot of that has been offensive quality showing through.
And that was going to be my next question. In this day and age, do you think a defensive-based team can win a Super Bowl? We saw the Ravens do it, but it's been 10 years since that happened. In 2023, is that conceivable?
This defense is very special, and to give you an idea, the Ravens have always been a stop-the-run first team. This team has completely flipped that on its head, and they've allowed 4.5 yards per carry, but they've also had a historic pass defense in terms of yards per play allowed, dropping that to 4.1. So if you're talking about a modern offense beating a modern defense, it's usually the case that they can't stand up to the elite passing attacks. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where this Ravens team is very special in that regard. They start every play pretty much in a two-deep shell. They rotate out of that a lot. But what that means is they've been able to use the player I think is the best horizontal defender in the entire NFL right now is Kyle Hamilton, to patrol the line of scrimmage, rush the passer as necessary. He's so long, the blocks don't even really impact him if they come from a wide receiver or a tight end. He's a great matchup player. When the other team plays 12, the Ravens can always go to big nickel very effectively. So he's really kind of the single player who gives this defense a lot, although they have a lot of really great players, as you know, on that defense with Roquan Smith and Marcus Williams and their edge rushers and whatnot.
Yeah, I was talking about Roquan Smith. I don't think I've ever seen this before, where a guy comes into a team midseason and he's the leader. And he was the leader last year, and he picked up right where he left off. I don't think he's quite Ray Lewis, but he's kind of in that mold, isn't he?
Yeah, he definitely has that demeanor as a leader. And a couple of things have happened in the last couple of weeks that are really cool Roquan things. But first of all, when he's with the Bears, I believe he was very frustrated. All the tape I looked at said there's no way he's going to be as good a player as he's been when he came to the Ravens. So he himself has improved his game. But one of the other things is he's just a very natural leader. I'm forgetting the game it was, but with 2 minutes left to play, he allowed a player to get up intentionally so that he could make a tackle that would run the clock down to 2 minutes. I mean, this is third-level thinking of game management in terms of what he's done. And the play this last week, Zay Flowers scored the touchdown that put the game away, and it's fantastic. They needed the first down to win the game, but they probably would have rather he kneeled, and he actually, by scoring, he took their chance to win the game from 100 to 99. I'm not a big complainer about that, but I will say you see Roquan on the sideline after that. He walked away from the end zone where the touchdown was scored, shaking his head. So he's expecting a level of accountability and in-game understanding from everybody on that team, and I do love that about him.
Yeah, he's been very impressive. Now, you talk about complementary football too with the defense, and that means you run the ball more, and maybe you run Lamar more. This is kind of the point of the season where he's checked out the last 2 years because of injury. How do you balance that with where they want to go with Lamar the rest of the year?
I think it's got to be one of the absolute top priorities is keeping Lamar healthy the rest of the way. And again, I keep coming back to the tackle play, but that's the first place where he's at great risk of getting hurt more than running. The biggest risk for a quarterback in getting hurt is on quarterback hits, because then you're throwing the ball and taking a hit at the same time, and usually making a sacrifice of that type. When sacks in particular, they're often are already converted to run plays for Lamar, and he knows how to go down on a run very effectively. So the big risk is really in the pocket, and with a tackle play being what it has been, it's just that's my greatest fear for this the rest of the way. It would be ideal if they could get to that Week 18 Pittsburgh game and their seeding was not on the line, and they could sit Lamar and maybe only have to play 4 games before then. But everything really, exactly what you're saying is exactly what the Ravens need to plan around in terms of making sure he's healthy and available for the playoffs.
And as far as the seeding, we were just talking about this with the Cowboys last night, what a different team they are at home versus on the road. And if they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs, they're going to have to play home games. How much of a difference do you think it is for the Ravens home versus on the road in the playoffs?
The Ravens have a terrific road record in their playoff history, and this team is built in some similar ways in terms of being a team that can go in cold weather. And, the Ravens for years have been one of the only teams who could give New England good games there in terms of the playoffs. I think they're capable of winning on the road, and I think they're one of the few teams that really has a good chance to go into Kansas City and win. I still hope that that's not where it ends up, but I think they have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have been there, done that, so they kind of know what to do this time of year. Plug the podcast. How can people get it?
Sure. FilmStudyBaltimore.com is the website. If you're an older guy like me and you have trouble downloading podcasts, just go there and play it directly off the website. Otherwise, Film Study, Baltimore Ravens Talk is the on all Apple, Spotify, whatever you might download your pods from.
Yeah, nothing like Google and Googling podcasts. At least I'm able to do that. Hey, thanks, Ken. Good to talk to you.
All right, take it easy, Andy.
It's Ken McKusick, and again, it's the Film Study podcast as the Ravens get the week off for the bye. Then they're home against the Rams, at Jacksonville, at San Francisco versus Miami, and against Pittsburgh. And if he's talking about seeding and getting the number one seed with that kind of schedule, I mean, that's a rough schedule the rest of the way. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be able to rest Lamar. So this is the point of the year. Last 5 games of the year, last 2 years, haven't had Lamar available. Maybe the new contract has had something to do with that, and he's now got the security that he needs. And with whatever injury kept him out last couple of years, last year questionable about the knee, but I guess it was the knee. If there is something that's bothering him right now and he can play with, he's more likely, I think, to play with an injury. But that's going to be the key to how far they go. As good as the defense is, if they don't have the franchise quarterback, who's now being paid like a franchise quarterback, it's not going to be good for them. But, again, what you just heard Ken say about their ability to win on the road is probably going to help them. And could they go into Kansas City in an AFC championship game and win? Yeah, they probably could. But, a lot of football left between now and then. And no football this week. No Ravens this week. They play a week from Sunday against the Rams. I want to thank Ken McKusick for coming on today. Thanks to Rex Minturn for running the show. Thanks to my cousin, Jim Pollin, with memories of the 50-year anniversary of the Capitol Center, which comes up tomorrow as it opened on December 2nd, 1973, was torn down December 15th, 2002. But, what great memories we have of the times we had there. Enjoy the weekend. Tony is coming up next, and I'll see you back here Monday morning at 9 a.m.